Okay guys, what I'm going to do this morning is kind of a combination of what we learned in the last chapter, which is arrays and loops and kind of basically a very common task is when you have a bunch of data stored in an array is to kind of loop through that array and add up the data, and then also kind of find the highest and find the lowest and find the average, and these are just very normal operations. So I'm going to kind of make a little video on some normal array operations such as sum, average, yada yada yada, highest, lowest. And I'm going to start by, just like I always do, pulling in the Bootstrap starter template for my HTML. And let's go ahead and link to a script file called script.js, and we throw in the defer attribute because best practice, and we'll say script.js and alert hi mom, just to make sure everything's wired up, and launch the page and we get hi mom. So our script is in fact linked, and so the first thing I'll do, make a little web form, and actually maybe before we get into the web form, let's just make our array data. So quickly we can make some arrays, and I'll make our variables constant. And the idea behind this is we might have multiple sales region 1, 2, 3, and 4, and each region has some quarterly sales. So region 1 has 4 quarters worth of sales, and then we'll do a few more regions. Region 2, and throw in some random number, something more random, and 4 quarters of sales. For whatever reason they didn't sell anything on the last one. And so region 3 had a really great sales, 100,000, and then they retracted, and then whatever, it doesn't matter. This is the dummy data. And so here's our array data, and again we're going to use a loop, and we're going to kind of sum these up in different ways. And on our form, button, type of button, and we'll say sum the quarterly, sum the regions, sum the regions. And so what we're going to do is say, hey, I want to add all, like region 1, I want the sum of region 1, the sum of region 2, the sum of region 3. Okay, so that'll be one way that we're going to kind of loop through. So if you think of it this way, it's kind of like summing the row. So each one of these is a row, and then we'll make another one, another button, type of button, that will sum the quarter sales. So we could say, okay, well this quarter, and this quarter, quarter 1 in other words. So we want to sum the columns. So one button will sum the rows, another button will sum the columns, and then we'll have another button to find highest sale, find the highest quarterly sale. And so we need to go through all the data in that case and find the highest. And then of course maybe another one for the lowest. And then we'll do another one for the average across all of them. And we'll just, throw a little bootstrap button, success, class. Let me pull up my buttons, components, buttons. We got danger warning info. Let's do primary, secondary. Okay, that's good. All right. And take a look. So whatever, we got some buttons, and let's make a paragraph for the output. So this will just be actually, let's make this there's an output tag. That the idea behind the output tag is whenever you do math in JavaScript, and you could put the result of that math from the JavaScript into the output tag. And we'll just call this, result. Okay, and so the first task is sum the regions. In other words, summing each row. And so let's go ahead and wire up an event handler. Document get element by ID. And that's what I didn't give these buttons as a type of ID. So we'll call this button region sum. Dot on click equals, and we got an anonymous arrow function. And let's just make sure that that's wired up. So you click the button, it says hi mom. So we got our event handler is wired. And pretty usual to do a for loop. And we got a little Emmet hotkey here in Visual Studio. I can kind of tab in a for loop. And you can see here it autofills kind of a template. We got our control variable of index starting at 0 while index is less than the array.length. Well, we could just say region1.length because the length of region 1 is 4. So this is going to loop 0, 1, 2, and 3. So it's going to loop 4 times while the index is 0, then the index is 1, 1 is less than 4, 2 is less than 4, and 3 is less than 4. So there will be 4 iterations of this loop. And let's go ahead and make a variable called an accumulators. And these accumulators are going to accumulate their value every iteration of the loop. In other words, they're going to get bigger every iteration of the loop. And so I'll say let sum region 1. And what you want to do is you want to start your accumulators off at 0. Sum region 2. Let sum region 3 equals 0. And so we're going to have 3 accumulators, and every time through the loop, these accumulators are going to get bigger. And so I'll say sum region 1 plus equals region 1 sub index. Now, index is 0 the first time through the loop, so region 1 will add region 1 sub 0, which is 1000, to the sum. And then the next time it'll add sub 1, which is 2000 to the sum. The next time it'll add sub 2, which is 3000 to the sum. The next one it'll add sub 3, which is 4000 to the sum. And you can see how this loop will go ahead and iterate over all 4 elements in this array and add it to an accumulator value. And then all we have to do is do the same kind of thing, sum region 2 plus equals region 2 subindex, sum region 3 plus equals region 3 subindex. And that will give us our 3 sums for all of our regions, and that's inside the for loop. And I'm going to take some time and let's go ahead and use strict here. I'm going to take some time and kind of fix my settings so that it doesn't bark at me for all of these spacing, my linter here, for all these spacing deals. I'm not going to worry about it right now. Now it says sum region 1 is assigned a value, which is assigning a value right here, but it's never used. In other words, it's never output. So here's where we're going to output the data. So we'll say document get element by ID. We call this output dot enter HTML. We're going to use a template string. So we got this fun character, which looks like a single quote, but it's not. It's just above the tab key. And we'll say the sum of region 1 is sum region 1, line break, the sum of region 2 is sum region 2, line break, the sum of region 3 is semicolon, and because this is in a for loop, this is supposed to be 4 spaces. This is supposed to be 2. Get rid of this white space. This is not the important part. There we go. Got some trailing white space. It's not needed. And a semicolon that's needed there. Okay, clean document. And launch, sum the regions, and it didn't work. Now let's take a look at why. Cannot set the properties of null of enter HTML. So what I did is I opened up my dev console. I clicked on this console tab, and it says it cannot read the inner HTML of null. In other words, I'm not targeting my result properly. And so I called it output. Here I called it result. Of course, those IDs have to match. So let's go back, and now let's sum the regions. And presumably my math is right. I'll just double check my first one, which is 10,000. So 1, 3, 6, 10. So it's looking good. So with that in mind, it's like, okay, let's sum the quarterly sales. And you might think it's going to be the exact same loop. It's not exactly the same loop. So let's go ahead and make up another event handler. For the quarterly. ID is button quarterly sales, button quarterly sales dot on click anonymous arrow function. And we're going to talk about the different kinds of functions. T-E-R-L-Y Q-U-A-R. Why can't I spell this more? Quartly? Q-U-R-T-E-R. Q-U-T-E-R. Here, jeez. Quarterly. Funny word. On click and console.log hi mom. So instead of doing an alert, whatever, it's the same difference. Let's get a console log. Hi, Mom. So our event handlers are wired up. So we're going to have quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. So we're going to have 4 quarters. So let's go ahead and make variables for 4 quarters. Quarter 1, we'll start off at 0. Quarter 2 is 0. And now we need a loop, you know, because we have 3 regions. So we need to add 3 numbers. So presumably our loop is going to be 3 iterations. Let's go ahead and do a normal for loop. And let me think about how I'm going to work this out. So, I'm going to do this one a little bit different. Maybe I don't use these 4 quarters. I'm going to have one variable that holds the sum of these 3 elements. And then that's going to have to change that same variable. So quarterly sales equals 0. So the first time through the loop, I'm going to set quarterly sales plus equals region 1 sub index. So this will be region 1 sub 0. Here, let me write this out. Quarterly sales equals region 1 sub index plus region 2 sub index plus region 3 sub index. And that'll hold quarterly sales for 1 quarter. And then we need to go ahead and do something with that. And so while we're in the loop, I'll go ahead and do my output in the loop. See, here I did the output after the loop, but here I'm gonna try and change that a little bit. So I'm gonna do my output while I'm in the loop, because then the next time quarterly sales is gonna update with the next column of information. So let's go ahead and do our output. Document get element by ID result dot enter HTML plus equals, so it's going to append each time, and I will say I'll say quarter 1. I'll start by saying quarter 1. Now how am I going to say quarter 1? I'll say quarter, and then here I'll say index plus 1, because index is 0 the first time through the loop. So I need this to say quarter 1. And so this index is 0, but I need it to add a 1. So the first time through the loop, it'll say quarter 1. The second time through the loop, it'll say quarter 2. So like what the user sees is that users don't start counting at 0 like JavaScript does. Quarter 1 sales, and then I'll put in our quarterly sales. And then it'll go through the loop. Now this is array.length. So I actually don't want to loop through 4 times. I just want to loop through 3 times. Why do I want to loop through 3 times? Because, well, no, there's 4 quarters. How many times do I want to loop? I do want to loop. Yeah, I do want to loop 4 times. There's 4 quarters. So we can hard code the number 4. Yeah. So quarterly sales is 0. We want spaces there. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll fix this in my settings so I don't have to do this every time. But I just figure you guys want to see no errors on my editor. So let's look at this. So quarterly sales is region 1 sub 0 plus region 2 sub 0 plus 3 sub 0. And we got to add all 4 quarters, so there we go. And then we output quarter 1 sales and then the number, so let's blow that up. And then we need to put line breaks in there. Q1 sales, Q2 sales, Q3 sales. Let's put in line breaks, close, close, close. Every time through the loop at the end of the sum the quarterly sales, double check our work. 101,900 is the first quarter. There's 100, there's the next one, there's 900. So that did in fact add the quarterly sales. Okay, what do we have next? Find the highest quarterly sale. So basically the highest sale, find the lowest sale. So let's wire that up. And ID is button highest sale. Open up the console, F12, click on highest sale, hi mom. Okay, what do we really need to do here? Well, we need to loop through all of the data and look for the highest. So we need a loop that loops through 3 arrays with 4 elements in each array. So let's make our for loop. Let's loop through 4 times. So you could pick any region. They all have 4 elements. So this is going to loop 0 through 3. And let's make a variable called highest. Now, to assign 0 to the highest is not always the best practice, because if all your like sales were negative or something like that, then your highest sale would be the lowest negative sale, if that makes any sense. So a lot of times what you want to do is see if there's a built-in function for the lowest number in JavaScript supported. So like in C# there's a function I'm thinking there must exist in JavaScript. JavaScript lowest number method, nah, that's not what I'm looking for. Number.min value, there we go. So here we have this number.min value represents the smallest positive numeric value represented in JavaScript. So again, instead of saying highest equal to 0, we're going to set it to the smallest possible number that can be stored. Number.min value, which is an extremely negative number, like very small number. So then we're going to say if region 1 sub index is greater than the highest value, then we reassign the highest. Highest equals region 1 index. So it's going to say, okay, is this number 1000 greater than, is it greater than this really small number? Of course it is, so we're going to reassign it. And then we're just going to continue on, and I might refactor this. Then we'll say if region 2 sub index is now greater than highest. So keep in mind, the highest value is now 1000, right? And now we're going to check, is 900 greater than 1000? Well, of course it's not. So this if statement will never run, which would reassign it to region 2 sub index. And then we're just going to do the same thing if, and again, I might be able to refactor my code into something cleaner, but if region sub 3 is greater than highest, so keep in mind 1,000, so it's going to say is 100,000 greater than 1,000? Well, yes it is, so let's reassign it. So this reads, is 100,000 greater than 1,000? The answer is yes it is, so let's now assign highest equal to region 3 sub index. Okay, so this is a way through looping through all of the data, all of our sales regions, looping through every number in these arrays and looking for a highest value. And then once this loop is done, let's go ahead and print out the highest. Document get element by ID, result enter HTML equals the highest sales value is, and we print out highest. And let's find my mistake, because probably made one. Okay. It says unexpected token, angle bracket, line 42. Line 42. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Okay. So let's go back. Load it up. Counsel's clean. Let's click find the highest. The highest sales is 200K. And if we look at the data, 200K is our highest sale. So that's how we find the highest. Okay, and I imagine if you have the highest and understand how to loop through all the data and parse for the highest, then we can figure out the lowest pretty quick. How am I doing on time? I'm gonna try and get this into 45 minutes. I think I'll get it in. Let's see, button. Find the lowest sale. I literally just typed that ID. Let's make sure I don't have any typos. On click. Let lowest, and so we're going to initialize lowest to the highest possible number. Therefore, any number that you put in is probably going to be lower. So number dot max value. Let's go ahead and here's a fun way to change this up. Nah. Yeah, I mean, you could do like a for, there's for in, for of, and touched on the differences on those. We'll dive more into those later. Let's just do a standard for loop. For loop, index less than, and it doesn't matter because ultimately, we just need it to loop less than 4. So you could hard code the number 4 here. This and this do the same thing. This is considered more dynamic. This is more static. So it's always better to be more dynamic. Because if region 1 were to grow, then this loop would automatically loop another time versus having to change the number 4. Don't be a copy paste victim. So let's make sure if I do copy and paste my if statements, if region is lower than lowest, then we're going to reassign lowest to region 1 subindex. Again, change the symbol from greater than to less than, greater than to less than, parsing the lowest variable. And lowest and lowest and copy pasta and lowest and lowest. Pop that open, find the lowest sale. Lowest sale is 0, which I believe is correct. There's our lowest sale. I mean, if we change that up to a negative number, there you go. And the last one's actually the average sales. Well, for the average, we need the sum. Luckily, we already have the sum. What you're going to notice here is that here's the sum of all the regions. I don't have like a total sum. So let's go ahead and make a variable that is global in scope. Okay, so they're not local scope. Local means they're in this method, and therefore these variables, sum region 1, 2, 3, they're only accessible in this method because that's where they were declared. They were declared here. These variables are more global in nature because they were declared outside of a method. So if you declared outside of a method, it's considered global. It's a little bit more complex than that, but for right now, in the method, accessible in the method, out of the method, accessible to all the methods. And we'll again, break that down a little bit more because that's not exactly how it is, but let's say total sales equals 0. And then so since we have all the region sales, we'll just go ahead and say total sales equals sum region 1 plus sum region 2, sum region 3. So now we have this total sales variable that now keep in mind we're gonna have to click on the region sum to get this total sales. That might not so what we could do in order to fix this is when we click on the average button, we could in our JavaScript tell the JavaScript to cause a click event to happen on the button region sum first. That way we don't have to manually click it. We just have, okay, the user clicks on the average, then the JavaScript clicks on the sum the region, therefore we'll have the total sales, because if you don't click on sum the region, then you're not going to have total sales. You need total sales to do the average. Let's wire that up. We can do that, but let's start by not worrying about it, and let's just manually click the button and not have JavaScript click the button. I'll do that because why not? Button average sales. And button average sales. Okay. Hi, Mom. So what we need now, once you have the sum of all, then you need to know how many things you added up. So we added up, 12 things. So you need the sum divided by the number of things you added. So I'll do something like a const average equals total sales divided by, and basically we need to say this number plus that number, region 1 dot length plus region 2 dot length plus region 3 dot length. Again, the number is 12, but this is more dynamic in nature, and that if you add, if you add another quarter, even though you probably there's only 4 quarters, but you get what I'm saying. This is 12 total sales divided by 12. The average is now calculated, and we need to output it. Awesome. And let's find my mistake, and then I'll wire up an extra click. Keep in mind, I got to sum the regions first to get that variable initialized. If I don't sum the regions, then the total sales will never get initialized with a value, and so then we can't find the average of $31,408.25. Okay, so let's trigger a click event, and the way to do that is to target the button and store it in a variable. And so we're going to target this button region sum, and so let's store that in a button region equals. You can actually store the HTML element in a JavaScript variable. So this selector selects the whole button, the HTML button, stores it in a JavaScript variable, and then we could say button region sum dot click, and it's a method, and this will click the button for us. It should click the button for us, and then when you click this button, it runs the button click event, of course, on click, which is way up here, to then initialize our total sales, to then calculate the average. So now, there we can now, it now runs the button click for the regions before finding the average. Awesome. Sum by the array, sum by the column, highest, lowest, average. Those are some very common operations in JavaScript. Any questions? John, was that what you were looking for?
Yeah, that's just what I was looking for.
Perfect, perfect. All right, thank you guys.